Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 14 of Wake Up with Giants Radio. Oh, I put my camera up there too far. I am Lady Luck, and I am joined here by Nick the Gentle Giant and our special guest co-host today, Maureen Pisani. She's been with us for a few weeks now, and we're so excited to have her back today. Today, we're going to be talking about PTSD and the science behind it. And we're going to go ahead and get started now with our centering before we go live on Access Radio. Please do remember to put all of your comments in the comments there. And if you'd like to, if you're on the run and you need to switch over, please do join us on Access Radio, axisradio.ca/country-music, and you can get into the chat there. All right, we're going to sit up nice and straight and tall. And take 3 deep breaths, breathing in and out. In and out. In and out. Today, I show up powerfully as a leader and a student. I am humbled by the co-hosts that are here with me today and the people around me. I show up in that humble state to learn about PTSD, to share my experiences, to share my knowledge with those that may need it. I show up powerfully today to make a difference in 100 million lives. And I am here today to share my experiences and my knowledge to make a difference in just one. I'm humbled to be here today with our guests, with our guest co-host, and honored to be sitting this panel today on such an important topic. Go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, I'm feeling like I'm going to stay in the space of calmness around this, to remember everything that I know and that I've learned around PTSD and trauma and neglect, to hold space for remembering, and also to recognize that there are a lot of things I don't know, and to be a student through this experience as well. And so really to be of service to the end user, the listener, the viewer, to make sure that whatever I speak serves them and in a form serves me in my life.
Thank you, Nick. Maureen?
I'm here today to be of service, to share that there is light at the end of the tunnel. I am humbled by the opportunity, this collaboration, and the availability to share that yes, we understand. Yes, we've been in it. And yes, we can help you to come out of it too.
Thank you very much. We're going to go live here in just a minute.
Feels like a prayer, almost in a way.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, beautiful.
It does. Nick, I wonder if you could do me a favor. We need to go live on Access in just a minute here. I'm getting an error message here for our feed into the tribe.
Okay.
Could you just check the tribe and see if it's streaming there for me? Thanks.
Yeah.
We are streaming on the YouTube channel and on Wake Up with Giants TV channel. I don't know why this error message is here, but I do need to go live on Access now.
Yeah, go ahead and go live. I'll let you know. Yeah. It's on.
Thank you. We're just playing our intro there. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 14 of Wake Up with Giants Radio. I am so excited to have you all here with us today. This is Lady Luck, and I am joined in the studio today by Nick, the Gentle Giant, and our special guest co-host, Maureen Pisani, the Hypno Lady. She's been with us for a few weeks now, and we're excited to have her today to talk to us about the science behind PTSD and how hypnotherapy can help. And we're going to talk about other strategies as well today. But Maureen is our resident expert in PTSD, and we thought that this was such an important topic that it deserved its own episode. So here we are today, and I'm gonna move right over to Maureen. I'm gonna start her off, and she can start to describe to us the science behind PTSD. Welcome, everyone, and it's all yours, Maureen.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here again with both of you. This is just an amazing opportunity. And thank you for being open to discussing this amazingly important topic. So the first thing we need to do is this. PTSD is awful. PTSD affects so many people. But there's an aspect of the population that is more affected than most, which is the military people. So first, my eternal gratitude to all of you for your service. If you know anything about Malta, where I originally come from, it was the Allies that stopped the Germans from literally, Hitler gave the order, burn it to the ground. So I am always indebted to you. And my thank you to you is always 30% off whatever I'm doing for all military, active or veterans. That's the only way I can actually help. So first thing first, thank you, Patricia. The one thing we need to do is understand what it is, what affects us, and how to actually start turning the tables, right? Get us into the space where we can be more aware to shut it down before it kicks us in the teeth. So I want to just share a little story very briefly here, so you guys know that I know the feeling. Born and raised on the island of Malta, 9 by 17 miles, 500,000 people, incredibly political. Split down the middle. Now, if you know anything about the Bible, Jesus actually tells people if the village that you go to talk to doesn't like you or shuns you, dust your sandals off, dust it off. So you don't even have the dust from that village. So there was a plan to go for a political rally to one of those villages where they bragged about that, okay? And we were there. I was 17. My dad was a heart patient, and if you know anything about me, I was the right person at the right time to save his life when I was 8.5. So I'm 17, my dad's a heart patient, and we go for this rally. And he tells us, we go in 5, we leave 5. Meaning mom, dad, me, and my brother and sister. In the middle of this rally, hell breaks loose. There were corrupt police officers and helicopters shooting tear gas, choking gas into the actual group of people, 7,500,000 people. So it was pandemonium, absolute hell. And I grab mom, brother, sister, take them about a half a mile away from danger. And as soon as I get them there, I realize my dad's not with us. He's a heart patient. He's had 3 heart attacks in a week, couldn't drive for 2 years, couldn't lift a chair for a year. He's in the middle of hell. So at 17, I go back. I have to go back. I can't leave him there. He's either going to be stampeded on or has another heart attack and drops dead. So I walk back into hell, and I never forget it. It was crazy. It was like the apocalypse. And I'm walking in when everybody's running out. Men are screaming and crying and being dragged. Women are in sheer hysterics. And I'm walking in, and I find him. And he's standing. My dad never had Kleenex. He had a hanky, and he was like this to protect himself from all those toxins, right? And we lock eyes, and he looks at me and goes, "She came back." I'm like, "Of course I come back. You're my dad." So that's the thing that I want you to keep in mind. I was 17. Fast forward life. I'm living life. I come to the States. I'm literally living in La Jolla, which to most is a very luxurious, peaceful, comfortable space of living. And in 2014, there's the umbrella revolution in China. And if you don't know anything about it, check it out, because the thousands of people only had umbrellas to protect them. So I'm getting ready for my day. I have my TV on for the early morning news so I can actually, have an idea what's going on in the world. And the umbrella revolution happens. And I walk out into the living room and I see it. And I don't know what happened. My legs gave out. I end up crumpled on the floor, sobbing hysterically, because what I saw across the planet triggered panic in me. And that's basically PTSD right there, post-traumatic stress disorder. So why does it hit us like that? Because I can tell you, I'm the best person you need to have in an emergency. I am the action taker, right? I will take charge and I will save. I have saved. But when it happened to me, I lost it. I had nothing left. I crumpled, literally. So we need to experience and take the layers out, because the second you say PTSD, people have a knee-jerk reaction. They categorize you, they judge you, they determine what you can or cannot do. Where the irony here is that the biggest axis of PTSD is the unpredictability. So when it comes to how we look at it, I would really love for all of you to just take the journey with us. Let's see how we can explore this, because yes, it's awful. Now, here's the thing. For all of you out there who are experiencing it right now, you know that there was a version of you in the past that was strong, reliable, capable, that if something happened, you took action, you went and saved, you were the first responder, you were the one that saved the day. But now something's happened to you where you can't depend on you. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know what is going to be triggering it. Because that's the thing. If you knew that, G sharp, the sound of G sharp actually triggered, you don't listen to it or you protect yourself against it. But it could be anything. So the biggest monster in this whole scenario is the unpredictability, and that we can't depend on ourselves. Because as all of you know, there's a portion of the population that in a crisis expects that somebody else is going to do it. So they might have the trauma, they might have a version of it, but they won't have it as heavy or as traumatic or as debilitating as the others who are the ones who usually run in. Do you guys connect with that?
Yep.
Yeah, and it's bringing up so much for me. And the first thing that it brought up for me is it's this uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you know then? How do you know when it's going to hit you? How do you know what to do? And when it does hit you, how do you know that that's what it is? It's just it just brought up all these questions for me and this confusion for me.
So if any of you, I hate to plug it, but it truly is. If any of you have seen the series Outlander, season 5, you'll enjoy it. Season 5, episode 8 is the best depiction of PTSD that I've seen. And it shows you how it could be kinesthetic, it could be a touch, it could be a sound, it could be a tune, it could be an accent, it could be anything. So what's happening here? So the bottom line is this. The uncertainty is what basically kicks us in the stomach every single time. So we need to start at the very basic. The very basic is your brain. Good, Nicole, I'm glad you do. Your brain has one intention: to keep you safe. So rewind your life to the trauma. So if we go, you know how the country security has green and then yellow, orange, and then we go all the way to red. So internally, we have that too. Now, in our brain, the amygdala is the security guard. It's constantly vetting, constantly checking. Am I safe? Is there any possible danger? So if I'm walking on the beach at 10 in the morning, there's no danger. I feel okay. But if I'm walking in an alley at 11:30 at night, the hairs on the back of my neck stand up because my amygdala is telling me, this is not good. You can be attacked. This is too many dark shadows here. We can't protect you. In a trauma, when the worst possible situation happens, your amygdala flares, really kicks in high alert. Do something now. You're in danger. As soon as that happens, the hippocampus, which is in charge of filing memories, stops working. So now we have an immense trauma with the added pain that it's never being filed back. So it could be triggered at any point, any time, and then bam, it's here. And you're walking life and you're happy with your family, and bam, it's here. And you're about to fall asleep and you have this just one little relaxation moment where bam, it's there again. So what's happening is this. As the hippocampus and the amygdala, basically they're playing off each other. The amygdala keeps saying you're not safe. The hippocampus stops working. Then the message is sent down to the adrenals, where the adrenals send out adrenaline and cortisol, and you're wet knuckling every moment of your day. How are you supposed to feel good?
Can I ask you on that? So Peter Levine, Bessel van der Kolk, in their books, Waking the Tiger and The Body Keeps the Score, they talk about the body storing the memories of that trauma throughout the entire body. That it's not as simple as putting it in the hippocampus and saying that it's stored there completely, because with trauma, it's everywhere. And so they talk about shaking, the importance of shaking. Animals in the wild will shake to kind of release some of that energy. And so there's never that releasing of that energy. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are around that, with the memories being stored throughout the body and those chemicals coming out and flooding and then just pulling all that up. And you're wondering, where did that even come from?
Absolutely. So in the brain, and this is the piece I love about working with all of you here, because you guys know that as we go across the somatosensory areas of the brain, there's the depiction of the homunculus, how we have certain nerves allocated to certain body parts. But our unconscious mind actually does something very similar. So we have certain emotions stuck to or allocated to certain body parts. So negative energy gets stuck, and stagnant energy can be, an unbelievably cramped trapezius that never relaxes, because you can't risk relaxing, because when you relax, bad things happen. Right. And the adrenaline, we know that after, a horrible car crash, we shake. Why do we shake? Because there's so much adrenaline in the muscles that the muscles contract to metabolize all that adrenaline. So to shake it out is actually, I would tend to agree with it completely. And of course, we come towards the end. Now we'll be talking about the solutions and what to do. But earthing is one of them, because you need to release. You can't hold it all the time, because otherwise it'll just, something's got to give.
Yeah. See, the crazy thing about trauma like this is it can be latent. Somebody might not even notice it. I had a customer. He was a Vietnam veteran. He was fine for 50 years, no issues at all. And then as his brain started to break down with age, it opened up some of those old pathways from PTSD. He was crying all day. He was shaking, trembling. He was having all of that trauma come up later in life. So it can be latent, Yeah.
See, one of the things that we know our brain does is that if the trauma is past a certain intensity, it'll block it. And it sounds like the Vietnam vet, your customer, had that happen. And then the irony here is this: if it is, the mind will only allow those memories to bubble back up to the surface if it thinks you are safe and ready to receive. So, we're about to start May here pretty soon, but in May, it will be 7 years since my car crash, where with a seatbelt, I was rear-ended so hard I hit my head on the windshield, reversed my lordotic curve, my cervical lordotic curve, if that makes any
Oh, wow.
So the funny part is this: I have no memory. I do not remember the impact. Today, I can tell you, I don't remember the impact, because technically speaking, the reversal of the cervical lordotic neck should have been equal to snapping my neck. death. So my memory just shut it out. So until you are safe enough to face it, you won't receive it. Which is almost like a paradox, because if you're safe enough and then you receive it, then you're not safe, because then you're facing it.
Yeah. So I was reading, what was I reading? I don't even remember the book, but I remember the topic. And it was the conflict between trauma and neglect and complex trauma. So somebody that might have gone to war looking at their trauma versus somebody that grew up in an abusive family. And the idea was that trauma experienced by a child is the same as a combat veteran. But there's this conflict with the labeling of it, because the combat veteran is thinking, well, how could that even be remotely close to what I went through? And so they have this battle about how to label PTSD, where it really can encompass all of it.
Yes,
I mean, as a trauma. Yeah, go ahead again.
It's unknown to both. The child being neglected is facing an unknown scenario. The combat vet facing being ambushed is an unknown scenario. Both going past whatever the limit for safety is for each. So when that happens, we come to the point where we trigger, of course, we trigger sympathetic, we trigger fight, flight, we trigger save yourself, run as fast as you can. But what if you can't? The child being neglected can't. They think that's the only place they can get nourishment and safety and a roof over their head, even while they're being beaten every day.
Yeah, that brings up so much for me too. I mean, I never realized before we started talking about this how the smallest thing, or something that we see as a small thing. Obviously, the person in that situation doesn't see it as a small thing, but something outside of something big like combat can trigger PTSD, and sometimes in a big way. And also, and what Nick was saying about this client of his who experienced it later, and not right away, experienced it later. It makes it so unknown and so scary. And I never really saw it before, but I know now that I experienced PTSD in some way. And my question to you, Maureen, is how do we know when we're finally cured from it? Because I see, when I look back, I see that I experienced PTSD from my divorce. From my ex-husband. It was a very angry, volatile situation before we separated. And I recall being in a situation at a store, of all things, like a copy place. And I was at the copy desk, and I had ordered something, and they hadn't done it right. And the sales associate was starting to get angry with me. And he was a male, and he was big. He was taller than me, kind of the stature of my ex-husband. And I started to get upset because he was, getting, not yelling, but getting in my face a bit. And so I asked for a manager, and he said, no, I'll go get the manager. And I said, no, that's okay. I'll go and speak with the manager. And he chased after me in the store. This associate chased after me to get to the manager first. And it frightened me so terribly that when the manager came out, it was someone I knew. I knew this manager. I knew him in my personal life. I was shaking because this associate had and he wasn't chasing me. He was just trying to get to the manager first, right? But because he did that chase behind me, by the time I got to that other counter, I was shaking, and I was like, what is wrong with me? I couldn't even talk or think. And all I did was, because I knew this person, I could say to him, you don't know what other people have been through. You can't act that way. Your employees can't act that way. You don't know what other people have been through. And I couldn't even say to him what was going on. I just knew that I was I couldn't talk. And at that time, I knew that that's why I was feeling that way. But years later, 4 or 5 years later, I had the same reaction in an experience where someone was yelling at me. And I thought, oh my God, I thought I had healed from this. I thought this was over. And here it is, I'm having the same shaking reaction to someone yelling at me. So how do we know that it's over, that we've healed from it, and we don't have to worry about that trigger coming up again?
Well, what we need to do is have tools that we can instantly implement in the situation. So one of the side effects of PTSD is what they call hypervigilance. So you are super aware of everything all the time because your job is to keep you safe. So you're going to be attentive to who, in your case, who the big guys are and who is turning from pleasant to angry, because that's where the combination for you triggered. So when it comes to these things, we need to be very aware. So it's almost like we can see the red flag and be ready. So when you're in sympathetic, when you're in fight flight, when your body is basically thinking it's running for its life, it's got to save you, the only job it has is to bring you back to parasympathetic, which is safety. But if you're facing, I'm going to use your example because it's perfect, because it could happen anywhere, right? If you're facing an associate, it could be anybody. It could be somebody in line at a grocery store. It could be a mechanic. It could be a stranger. If they start talking to you that way, and you feel it, because what happens? Our heart rate speeds up. We get clammy hands. We get, some of us breathe deeply. Some of us shallow breathe. Some of us have this, again, remember, fight, flight, the 5 survival mechanisms. If you're a fighter, you're going to go in their face. If you're the one who's going to flee, you're going to literally just drop your groceries and run. And what if you're freezing? What if your trigger, your survival mechanism is freeze? Then you're stuck. So I want you to be able to have something instantly. So the first thing is this. You breathe in deeply and you breathe out forcefully. As soon as you breathe out forcefully, you trigger parasympathetic behavior physiologically, and your system starts getting calm. The reason that is important is because, switching it into the hypnotic world now, we have the conscious mind, critical mind, unconscious mind, and primitive mind. In fight flight, we go from conscious to primitive. Primitive, I don't have that capability to argue back, to rebut, to think straight. All I have in the primitive mind is survival. So if I switch back into parasympathetic, I can raise myself up back to conscious level where I have the prefrontal cortex back into activity. So now I go from losing all my tools to regaining them. That's 1. 2, the other thing you can do, according to the scenario. If let's say you're back home, you're technically having a good day and something triggers. And you realize it's happening because you feel it. You feel that you've just lost control. You feel that something has shifted to the point where you are not quite sure how you're going to get out of this. You have power, and this is very easy and incredibly effective. 5 numbers out of sequence. If you think or say 5 numbers, now don't choose small numbers, choose hundreds of thousands. 5 big numbers out of sequence. Why? Everything you're feeling, emotion, is right brain. If you allow the right brain to go into full hyperactivity, it's going to blow up like the 4th of July, which means you lose complete control. But if you, with intention, say those 5 numbers out of sequence, you will trigger left brain function. The hemispheres cannot be in hyperactivity simultaneously. So when you, with intention, say those 5 numbers out of sequence, you're getting the left brain engaged. As the left brain goes into hyperactivity, the right brain goes down into hypoactivity, which gives you control to think straight.
I want to speak to that a little bit. So the idea of cured, you mentioned cured. How do you know if you're cured from PTSD? That word cured, if you look at the meaning of it, it means to return to a healthy state, which what you're talking about, Maureen, if that's cured, getting to that hyper level or hypo level or balanced level, the homeostasis, that would be a cured state because it's a healthier state where you can respond appropriately to the situation. When trauma comes up, the person goes right into that primitive brain, like you said, and it's pure survival. And so there was another method that I learned, that you put your right arm under your hand under your armpit, and you hold your other part of your body to see where your container is, and just sit with that so you can feel your container is safe. And then you can use your body to kind of step back into that. Another one was breathing in through the nose, but putting the tongue on the top of your teeth right behind them and breathing out forcefully behind that. But again, it's all what you're talking about is it's taking you out of that primitive state into a cured, healthy state, which is where you start to get your brain back, where you're talking about the imaginative side that's going to go to the worst case scenario versus the mathematical side that's going to kind of bring you back into logic and reason. I mean, that's really what I see happening here is that you're just using these tools to get your body into a healthy enough state that you can respond appropriately. So the idea of cured, talking about cured, it doesn't mean it goes away. It's just you're in a healthier state that you can manage it. Am I off on that?
No, I'm talking about that later because I have one other point. I agree with you completely. Yes. So we can, let's say I'm cooking and I burnt my hand on let's say I went and put the oven right and I grabbed the whatever they call it, the shelves.
Yeah.
And I burnt my hand. That injury over here, it's far away from me. Anything up here or anything in here isn't far away from me. It's me. So I want to take you down this little pathway for 2 seconds here, because we have a group of people who have certain experiences, and I need to deflate the reaction that people have to one word. So we know that we've categorized people, which is horrible, hypochondriacs. And with the word hypochondriac, we get in our mind instantaneously, right? We identify, associate, and respond to everything in life. So as soon as I say hypochondriac, our association is somebody who makes up heart attacks, somebody who is blasting and exaggerating situations, and somebody who's doing it for attention. That's what we think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what about the people who do have it? Here's what's actually happening. If any of you have cooked chicken, you know that there's a muscle above the rib cage, and then there's a rib cage, and then underneath, what is there underneath the rib cage? Not a trick question. What is there under the rib cage? A heart. The heart. The heart is under the rib cage, literally, like right down here is my heart. So we have muscles above the rib cage and below the rib cage, and below the rib cage, they're crisscrossed. So you guys know that when we're stressed, the muscles in our neck, the trapezius cramps, right? And we kind of like, this hurts, we feel it. So what happens is when the muscles in the neck are cramping, other muscles are cramping. The muscles here are cramping. Now, what are these cramping on? A heart. Now, hypo means under, chondriac means cartilage. The breastbone is the xiphoid process is cartilage. So Ryan is always mischievous.
Yeah. Ryan says he wants chicken now for our radio listeners.
So when we think of hypochondriac, the real medical reason they're complaining of heart attacks is because the muscles underneath the cartilage are tightening and stressed so much and contracting so much on the heart, they feel it. Physiologically, they're not making it up. But if we rewind their life, their stress level is through the roof. So when it comes to how we respond, if the muscles in my calf were cramping to that extent, it would be annoying. But all I would say is, it's a Charlie horse. Okay, big deal, it'll pass. If the same intensity of contractions from my gastrocnemius and soleus come into my muscles in my chest, they're kind of different. Same muscle contraction, same intensity, different location. My response is different because now my response is, oh my God, this is my heart. My heart equals my life. Oh my God, my life might be threatened here. So that's when so I want you to be aware of what is happening, because it happens almost like the domino effect. But if we recognize the first domino and stop that domino from falling, then the rest won't. Then you can actually stop and breathe and think. Connecting with the container is fantastic. But now we have to talk about how are we going to remove the trigger?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the unconscious mind, we have knowns, experiences we've all been through. All of us, the three of us here and everybody watching, when we were about 11, 12, 14 months old, we were, kind of waddling into the kitchen, and mommy said, "Don't touch." And what did we do? Psh! And we had an owie. That little burn today is still resonating in our heads and in our unconscious mind because none of us put our hand on the stove.
I literally did that.
Tiny.
When I was 7 years old, I was going to be funny. We had a wood burning stove in our dining area, and I was going to be funny and pretend that it was hot and put my hand on it and act like I burned myself. Well, I put my hand on it and it was hot. It cooked my entire skin off of my hand. I had to peel it off. And I was 6, 7 years old. I remember the trauma of that experience, that my hand cooked off. And it's all healed now. My mom jumped right on it. But I remember being taken care of, and just the intensity of that whole experience. It's still there. Like I could still, that I was a kid, that was years ago, but it's still there.
See?
Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to take us to commercial break for a moment, and we'll be right back. Okay, so our mics are off there. We're just on a 2-minute commercial break, but oh my goodness, we've got a question in the comments too that I want to answer when we come back. But oh my goodness, that brought up so much for me too. I say that it's not trauma just for ourselves; it's trauma for other people. I put a hedge trimmer through my baby finger and cut right through the bone. I almost cut the end of my finger off. And my daughter was there, and she saw the whole thing, and she saw all the blood. And she wouldn't hold that hand. She kept telling me it was the broken hand. She wouldn't hold that hand for about 2 years. And then I was engaged, and I had a diamond ring on it. And she thought that the diamond ring had cured the hand. So she would hold it again. She said it made it whole, and she would hold it again. But it took her 2 years to hold that hand again, because she said that was the broken hand. And if she was traumatized by it, though, she saw me do it. She saw the blood. She's like, saw me get taken to the hospital, and then my mom came and got her, and by the time we got my mom there and took her away, but it was trauma for her too, and it wasn't even physically on her body, and to this day she won't let me use a hedge trimmer. She won't let me touch one.
Yes,
it goes back to what you talked about, uncertainty. Like somebody could have vicarious trauma because it creates uncertainty in their space, and then they have trauma around it even though it wasn't their experience. 2001, the Twin Towers, that would be a prime example of that,
Absolutely. Yes.
We've got about half a minute here.
Ryan's like, I don't want chicken anymore. It did smell like chicken.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
I didn't taste it, but yeah.
I can't even imagine.
I got better.
Thank God. That's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah. Amazing. So where are we picking up with the question?
Now. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to episode 14 of Wake Up with Giants Radio. I'm Lady Luck, and I'm here in the studio with Nick, the Gentle Giant, and our special guest co-host, Maureen Pisani, the Hypno Lady. And today we are talking about PTSD. Actually, we're talking about the science behind PTSD and how hypnotherapy could work, and we're talking about other strategies as well. And so we're going to jump back in. We were talking about the actual pain of a situation and having that trigger. And I think we were going to get into, Maureen was going to get into how to let go of those triggers. But because before the break, we were talking about how you won't be totally cured from PTSD. You might have strategies there in place and things that you do when you are triggered, and the trigger might become less and less as you begin to manage those triggers in those situations. But now we're getting into how to get rid of the actual triggers from that trauma. And I'll bring it back to you, Maureen.
Thank you. So thank you. Perfect intro. So we have, how we all talk about the Congress Library, the Library of Congress. Sorry, that's one of the things I can never get right. It doesn't matter.
In Malta, do they say it in reverse, like in Latin and Italian? La biblioteca. Right?
So it's something where we know that there's a tremendous amount of information there. We have that. We have every single memory filed in our unconscious mind. Good, bad, mediocre, average, ecstatic, horrific. Everything is filed. Why? Because our unconscious mind, the first only intention it has is to protect us, to keep us safe. So when we have these traumas, trauma means close call. The irony here is the intense strength all of you have because you're still here. You've lived it, you're recoiling from it, but you're still here. So that is tremendous strength. So the unconscious mind has this red flag system. And when something horrible happens to us, combat, situations, whatever they might be, right? When we have that trigger, our mind is telling us, you are not safe because this happened. Now, with the hippocampus not filing back, remember, the unconscious mind is the serious programming. We can cross our fingers till the cows come home. I wish I can be better, but the conscious mind doesn't have the oomph to make the change. So hypnotherapy is where we can actually create results. Because the second we access the unconscious mind, we can reset. And I'm not joking about this. We can reset how your unconscious mind responds to life. I had a case where this soldier was in the depths of hell during the worst possible time. And this soldier was there for 18 months. And this soldier was back stateside for 18 months, but still slept like this. And the spouse brought the soldier in, and I'm leaving it anonymous, of course, on purpose, because the fear was that the soldier would actually have a dream and just knock the person out. The situation was this. This soldier, in their unconscious mind, had only one message. You are not even safe when you're asleep. Mm-hmm. So it didn't matter that this person was back in the States for 18 months. That red flag, that message, you are not safe, you are not safe, you are not safe, was still echoing. So with hypnosis, we got to change. We got to reset. Now, hypnosis accesses your unconscious mind. And hypnotherapy works because the autonomic nervous system, where all of this is happening, sympathetic, parasympathetic, heart rates, breathing rate, blood pressure, sweat, all of it is beneath our awareness. So if they're both beneath our awareness, can you see how we can start connecting the dots? Because then one of the things I did do was I reinforced tremendously, you're back home. You cannot be ambushed by the Afghanis because you're back home. And that's a fact. One of my techniques is I will never give them baloney. I have to build on fact. So when it comes to how, if I can trust her, because the client isn't, can I trust Maureen? It's the unconscious mind of the client that's asking, can I trust Maureen? So I have to build on fact. And to be quite honest, I respect you guys too much to give you fluff. So we build on science and we build on fact and we build on the more you expect it to happen, the calmer you are. Because then you guys know what the triggers are. Like with Melissa, it's big guys who start going from pleasant to angry. So if I, in hypnosis, told her that people, regardless of gender, regardless of size, regardless of attitude, regardless of mood, she's going to keep feeling calm, collected, at ease, powerful, empowered. That's what the unconscious mind is going to present her in those scenarios. So then we can flip it because that's when the programming is happening. And it's amazing because, from one aspect, my hypnotherapy training was fantastic. But from another aspect, because of my prior chapters in life, which are crazy, I have additional information, so I can actually help. Because our fear is something's going to happen within me that I don't have control. Now, a lot of people tell you anchor with what you do daily. Some people say, every time you do this, every time you say Om, you're going to feel calm. Well, in a panic, you might forget. I mean, I'll share this. When bad situations have happened in my life, it doesn't matter that I've been praying all my life. The level of stress ends up with beginning one prayer and ending another one. And somehow they got mixed up because that's how stressed out I was. So if I can't remember a prayer that I've said my entire life, how are you supposed to remember which finger to push? So I link regular behavior. I link what people do every day. So as we're going through life, you don't have to remember that 3 times here is going to help you calm down. The simple act of grabbing your phone or grabbing your keys is going to send a wave of calmness. This way, you don't think about it. It just happens. And when we switch, remember, this is also learning. And we know we evolve through learning. That's the biggest evolution each one of us can make in our own lifetime. And I like evolving because as you write evolve down, the first 4 letters are love backwards. So we can grow with love. But as we're evolving, we get to recognize that it is okay for me to be safe. We all get accustomed to what we've known. One of the biggest hits people get, especially going back to the neglected kid versus the combat veteran, the abused children usually don't recognize their abuse because they think everybody's life is like theirs. And then when they come out of that scenario and they recognize that other people had it easier, had love. I mean, there are people out there who are loved simply because it's them. And there are some people who can't understand that because they've never received it. So if we allow this new set of programming to start running, neurosignature-wise, the more we enforce the positive, the weaker the trauma gets. And when we test out this ridiculous idea of being safe every day, everywhere, with everyone, I mean, sir, that's possible? Yes, it's possible. So when we test it out, now some of us might test it out because we really desire it. And some of us, thank you, Nicole, and some of us might test it out to defy me. Some of us might be, well, she says so, I'm going to prove her wrong. And the funny part is this, I don't need you to believe me. I just want you to enjoy the benefits. So when we come to testing it out and then finding out it's real, then your unconscious mind has that known. You faced it, you climbed over Everest, you came down the other side, and now you're enjoying this amazing life of calmness. It is possible. And the second you build it as a reality in your past, you've already lived calm and peace and happy and relaxed while being safe in every aspect. Then you will start letting it go because now your unconscious is going to run that program.
So I hear in this that what gets in the way is that unconscious programming that won't let you access it. And so what hypnosis does is it gets you in an induced state where you're receptive to it, where you can create that vision and that feeling and that emotion almost of being safe, so that you've created that outside of the knowledge and the perception of this conscious mind that wants to maybe block that.
Yes.
And then from that space, you're able to step and live into that and access it more easily. And so my question would be for those that maybe don't access hypnosis, like how would they go about that process without going through that induction phase? Let's say that they can't reach out to Maureen. Then what?
So we have windows of opportunity. The last 30 minutes of your day, each and every one of us, whether you're falling asleep at 10:30 at night, or falling asleep at 7:30 at night if you finished your night shift. So the last 30 minutes before we fall asleep, we are in a natural hypnotic state. In that 30 minutes, piggybacking on this morning's episode, create your magnificent life. Because then you get to ask my favorite question: what if? What if I could be, and visualize it. I could be safe in my car. I could be safe with my family. I could be safe at work. I could be safe with strangers. Safe is the key here. Mm-hmm. Abundance and joy and fun and, opportunities. Those are all beautiful, but the foundation off of which they build is if I feel safe. So what if I am blah, 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 and still feeling safe? Visualize it. Do it. Imagine virtual reality. Do it 360. You see it, you feel it, you hear it, you taste it, you smell it, all of it. So if you're creating a future where you're seeing X amount of clients, put yourself in your office, whatever it is that you visualize. If you want to see abundance, put yourself on the beautiful yacht. Feel the sun on your shoulders and taste the salt on your lips from the sea, from the ocean breeze. Make it real. 30 minutes before you fall asleep, and the first 30 minutes as you wake up. They're both hypnagogic states. But the morning, I would recommend triggering what you want to do today, what you desire to do today. So you don't plan your future in the morning, you plan your day in the morning. Because the suggestions that are in the morning are going to have the entire day's experiences before they're filtered into the unconscious at night while we sleep. The last 30 minutes before you fall asleep, that's the mind works with last in, first processed. So it'll be the most undiluted version of your future that you desire. So at night, you give yourself suggestions. What if? Would it be acceptable? Would it be acceptable if I had to have fill in the blank and still be safe? Because the second your mind goes, actually, yeah, that would be acceptable. I would like that. You got it. And then start recognizing, remember, what we focus on. If we have a garden and we're only watering one plant, only that plant will grow. Everything else will die. So if I wake up with, oh my God, I hope it's not going to happen again today. Oh my gosh, I hope it's not going to happen today. Oh my gosh, if that happens during this meeting, oh my gosh, it would be awful. I've just watered that setup.
Plant.
So come in with, I'm better. Come in with, because I always joke that 1% better is better. When I had that car crash, and I will not share pictures because Technicolor took on a different meaning. I had what I call the scarab. I had a big goose egg here. It was about this big. And half my face was literally Technicolor. And when I would stop people in mid-sentence. They'd walk into the restaurant. I'd be sitting at the table, right? And a waiter comes up and they're like, how are you? And what would you like? And oh my God, what happened to you?
Wow.
That kind. So if they told me, how are you feeling? I couldn't say, oh, fantastic. I'm better. Because 1% better from yesterday is still better. So come in with acknowledgement. Come in with the fact that come hell or high water, you're still here. You're fighting this. You're overcoming this. Yes, sometimes it feels like we're tackling Everest with a teaspoon. But you're still tackling. And you will still overcome.
Yeah, I could see the use and the usefulness of having somebody help you through this process, especially if your trauma is severe, is having a professional and a therapist, and even in some cases that medication to help offset the intensity. The thing with medications that I've seen, and this isn't me giving advice around medications, just an observation, just to be clear, that medications are intended to help you get to a state, that cured, healthy state, so that you can work on the deeper thoughts and emotions, right? Yeah. And so they're not meant to be the thing that you live on forever. In some cases, people are on them forever. but they're really meant to reduce the intensity or level out the intensity of the emotions. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So one of the things I always recommend, first of all, I've had my share of meds. When I was going through the arm situation, 6 years of sheer hell, I took over 25,000 pills. I've had my share of meds. But here's how I explain it to people. If my pancreas doesn't secrete enough insulin, making me a diabetic, I have to supplement my physiology with insulin, whether pills or shots, right?
Right.
And we're at the point now that there is no shame in that. We appreciate there's a deficiency in insulin, so we supplement insulin.
Mm-hmm.
So piggybacking on exactly what you're saying, if we have a deficiency of dopamine, serotonin, GABA, we need to supplement, because we can't have a smooth functioning machine if it's bumpy, if there's a deficiency. If my body is searching for that chemical and it's not there, I can't take the next step. So for a particular short period of time, yes, I agree, not permanent. And there are some cases that do. But the majority will need to basically prime the pump, get them up to that level of within normal limits, and then they can actually continue. I mean, like, if you have a fractured leg, your leg's in a cast for 8 weeks. It's not in a cast for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
So
that would be interesting, though, right?
That would be. I want to guide us in a couple of different directions as well. We've got a couple of questions here. And the first question is going back to that childhood when we may have experienced some of those triggers, not as nasty as Nick's hand on the stove, but small triggers that taught us just to be careful. Like, you know, this element is hot, you know, or the stove is hot. We don't touch the stove, and we touched it with a little finger and we got a little blister, and it wasn't some big, huge thing. But now we know we don't touch the stove when it's hot.
Mm-hmm.
What quantity or what portion of that do we actually need in our lives? And it brings me to teaching kids. Like I say to my 9-year-old and my 12-year-old all the time, please be aware of your surroundings. You know, when you're crossing the street, watch for cars. If you're in a parking lot, watch for people moving and cars backing out. Be aware of your surroundings. So how much of that do we actually need in our lives to be aware and be safe without it becoming PTSD?
Well, that's very interesting, because first of all, thank you for that question, because that brings us to, it works both ways, children and adults. One, we have to be in the moment, and two, we have to be alert. So if somebody's not in the moment, this is how they live. They're sitting at the dinner table with their family and they're like, oh my God, tomorrow I have this meeting. I have to prepare for that meeting. I didn't prepare yet. I have to do this. And they're missing the entire meet with the family, right? Or they're working at their office and, oh man, I'm missing lunch. I'm missing my dinner with my family. Oh, today is so-and-so's birthday. Oh man, I forgot. Are they really working? Because they're neither, right? Mm-hmm. They're not 100% with the dinner with the family, but they're not 100% with the whatever project they're working on. So the first thing is this: be in the moment. And we have to stop doing this. This does not work. Because we need to be alert for the simple fact to live. Because if I'm here thinking of there, and then I'm there thinking of here, I'm neither. And I've missed out. And the only asset we ever run out of is time. So be alert. But be alert not from fear, be alert from the space of empowerment. To be aware that there's cars coming back and forth, it's safety, it's worth it. To be aware that, you know, there's so many kids who they're in their own world. I mean, children are children. Mm-hmm. But now we also have adults who are only in their own world. And unless it affects them, they don't care. So being interactive, you don't have to come from the end, the world might end tomorrow, so I have to live the max today. Just be today, and you know, the sickly cliche is that today is the present. So we need to enjoy the gift. Mm-hmm. And with parents to kids, the mind skips the word not. So if your kid is holding a glass of water and you go, please don't drop the glass, the unconscious mind of the kid has heard, please drop the glass, which invariably they do. If you tell them, Make sure you hold the glass safely. Then that's what they'll do. So when we talk about it, and remember what we tell the kids from 0 to 7, they're imprint years. So if we tell them the world is a scary place, that's what's going in. If we tell them, be aware, because sometimes there's unforeseen danger, but I trust in the fact that you're strong enough to handle it correctly, that's the seed we've planted. And then when they grow up, they can face life as teenagers and young people and adults in a way that they know they can be aware and face life safely.
I like that. I use with my kids. I'll say, remember to do this, not don't forget to do this. So they'll usually do it.
Yep.
Which is good. Yeah, I like that.
And the thing is this, we have to trust them. We have to believe, because you're teaching them, right? Especially if you're the parent, you being all of you out there. If you're teaching them, you have this beautiful canvas, a blank canvas, and you get to draw whatever you want on these children. Now, thankfully, they have that X factor that makes them uniquely themselves. But you get to plant whatever seeds you want. Now, if you're doing it from your heart and you're doing it with the intention that you want to raise self-sufficient, independent adults, as they're growing up, trust the fact that the seeds you planted are actually going to take place. They're going to grow.
Awesome. And so that brings us to our next question that was in the chat that I want to make sure we answer is, how do I support someone I love who has PTSD to be open to receiving and healing?
So the first thing is, and this would happen in any case of a relationship, whether it's a romantic relationship or a family like siblings or colleagues, the person experiencing PTSD has to have what I would call almost like a safe word. And we're not going to go where that comes from, but we're going to use a safe word to give the other person something's happening. So let's pretend I'm in a relationship and I'm having an episode. And I've agreed that with my significant other, if I say the word daffodil, that means I'm off. I'm feeling off. Something's about to start. So if I'm having a regular dinner date or a regular lunch and I say, so traffic was really bad. Oh, daffodil. That means the other person now knows that something's going on within me. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is when we're used to being strong, and I know that the ones who are strong connect with this. There's an identification inside. I know I can handle life because I have. But now all of a sudden I know I'm not going to handle the next one. I need to know that the other person, 1, understands that it's happening, 2, isn't freaking out, 3, is not judging me, 4, is not coming from the space that it's embarrassing, because that's another judgment. Mm-hmm. And when we have that scenario, it could be allowing me, if I don't like exposing the fact that I'm about to lose it completely, and I go and lock myself in the bathroom, give me time. If I need to go and meditate, give me time. If I need to cry, just hold space. Now, hold space means by the way, you discuss the parameters when it's not happening. So I need to be able to tell the people I'm surrounded by, if this happens, this would be helpful to me. That wouldn't. So if you see this happening, it could be just leave me, just walk away. Don't say a word, just walk away. Or if it's incredibly, especially for men, if it's incredibly embarrassing to start crying, and I feel like I'm about to start crying, I need to walk away to a place where private, because it's embarrassing for me to cry in front of my loved ones. So set up the parameters when it is peaceful and safe, but it's not only when it's happening, after it happened, how do you want us to help you? Because if I'm the person having the PTSD attack, during, how do I want people to help me? And after, do you want me to talk about, do I want you to talk about it with me? Do I want you to bring it up, or do I want you to pretend it didn't happen? Because then we can set it up. There we go. Perfect. Yes. You just leave. You honor. Exactly. And then The other thing that I also want to mention is this, because we don't take it seriously enough, what I'm about to mention, and it affects so much. What you ingest, what you eat and drink affects. With all this that's happening, from the brain and the chemicals to the adrenals and the hormones, we also have blood sugar levels. Now, if our blood sugar drops, our brain needs, I think it's about a half a teaspoon constantly, half a teaspoon of sugar constantly. But if we have an irregular blood sugar level, where we either eat too many carbs or that we skip breakfast and lunch and only eat dinner, and our blood sugar drops, if our blood sugar drops to a certain level, guess what, guys? Adrenaline is shot out to make sure the brain continues working. And adrenaline is going to be what triggers hell. So if we get an idea, what I always suggest is this: if you're going through a very, very bumpy time, you need to eat protein every 2 hours. And it doesn't have to be animal protein. There's a lot of protein in vegetables. So protein every 2 hours. If you know that you overcome the storm, but now you want to maintain, you're kind of okay, but you're not quite sure. It's like you're on ice, but you don't know how thick or how thin the ice is. Protein every 3 hours. And it could be an egg. That's protein. It could be a handful of nuts. That's protein. Research it. Do your own research to find out which protein is the best for you. But to have, and I'm going to give you both sides here, to have an irregular blood sugar level, that would trigger. I know you've lived this. You're talking to somebody and you say something and they just burst into tears. And you're like, what the heck just happened? That wasn't hard. That wasn't harsh. But they just lost it, right? That's an irregular blood sugar response. If they have too much drama, if their life is just spikes, there's no calmness, that's irregular blood sugar. If they have the inability to sleep all night, when people, and I know some of you have lived this, you're fast asleep, and then you dream that you're falling and you land in your mattress. That's a blood sugar drop. That's your unconscious mind giving you the symbology of the physiology that you're experiencing. So the blood sugar, by the way, it does something that is so ridiculously annoying. It's called the lack of a generalization check. So when we do something that backfires on us, our memory holds it as in, that was uncomfortable, don't do that again. Like parking and getting a ticket because you parked in a handicap spot. I had a client, this really happened. I had a client 3 weeks in a row, she was late, and because she parked in a handicap ticket and a handicap parking and got a ticket 3 weeks in a row and never realized it. Week 3, she thought it was happening for the first time. Because every time she went through it, the brain actually had the experience of that day, but didn't translate it into long-term memory. That's a regular blood sugar. So if you regulate your blood sugar, by the way, you know the 3 p.m. slump? Irregular blood sugar. How can you function if you're about to pass out? Because you're exhausted. Once you regulate blood sugar, it'll be the best thing you've ever done in your life. It's the most boring thing you've ever done in your life, but it will truly help with PTSD, because that's how we're going to stop first domino from falling. You'll have regulated energy. You'll have stamina. You'll have mental focus. We all have that mental fog that we experience every so often. So mental focus, mental acuity, internal calmness. When we have those attacks, we feel everything shaking inside. The shaking inside is an irregular blood sugar. So if we look at what you are capable of, what you are in charge of, you got this. Because you're in charge of what you eat and drink. By the way, alcohol, coming from Europe, I am certainly not the alcohol police. But I've been drinking liquor since I was 5 years of age. But alcohol is fermented sugar. So be aware. So if you know you're going to drink, remember, imagine a roller coaster, right? The higher we spike, the faster we drop. So the higher you spike with the alcohol and all the sugar, the faster you're going to crash, which is going to be horrible. So balance it out. If you're going to drink, have protein. Come from a space where you get to win. It's not a lose-lose. It's a win-win. I would love to live this life while feeling safe, and this way I can actually stop it from having the bad periods because I know what to do.
Is that the brat and the beer treatment method for PTSD? That sounds perfect to me. I'm in.
I love that.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. We solved it.
Yeah.
We solved it. But seriously, guys,
there you go.
It's something.
That was beautiful. Wow. Some of that, a lot of that we have control over. A lot of it. Some of the responses might feel like we don't have control over it. So it comes on really rapidly. And I've had experiences around anxiety where it's severe and I just don't feel like I can get out of it. And so these tools of getting into that peaceful state, regulating your blood sugar, having some tools that can help you just get through that severeness. I know with there's a book called Calming the Emotional Storm. I think that's the name of it. And it's DBT skills.
Okay.
And it's all skills around DBT, meaning dialectical behavioral therapy, but it's skills around surviving the most difficult emotions to get you into that regulated state where you can work on it. Because you can't do a damn thing when you're out of regulation. When you're in that reptile brain, forget it. Just
shut down.
Yeah. Yep. You do shut down. So allow for that, and I love what you've given here is just this sense of you're really just trying to get your body back into that state where you can think it through. And then from there, create solutions. And so beautifully shared, Maureen.
Yes, thank you so much. And I'm just looking at the time. We do have to sign off of the radio show. So I'm going to thank Maureen so much for being here with us today. We're going to stay on social media for a little bit if there's any more comments for social media. But I'm going to remind everybody on Access Radio that we will be back at the same time next week. Next week, we will be talking about anchors, what they are and how we use them. So please do join us there. Back on Access Radio next week. We're just playing our outro there on the radio. And then we can take any last comments here on social media.
Oh, thank you.
That to me, like as I listen to this, Maureen, I just think through, I look at the process of everything. Like how does this affect this and this affect that? And, from every level, I just want to know it all. And so the way you share it, it puts it in a way that it's accessible to everybody because we're already designed with that in us, right? What you're showing is that you can access this. It doesn't matter what's going on for you. You have access to this, but I want to teach you how to do that.
Yes.
So I think that's where it gets really useful to have somebody like you where they can have that conversation and gain that trust for themselves. It's like leaning on a giant because you've built your trust, right? Now somebody else might not have that, but they can lean on yours to develop their own, which is beautiful.
And the thing is, we have to honor when we're in it. And the analogy I use is if you're sitting on a train and the train goes in a tunnel, you don't jump off the train. You hang in until...
I've been doing it wrong.
That's why you've been hitting your head.
Yeah, I'm like, this isn't working.
Well, I mean, to be transparent here, we all have our downs.
Yeah.
As do I.
Yeah.
And if I'm in it, I acknowledge, don't make a decision in a valley.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
And I know I'm going through it. And that's when I hibernate because I don't want anybody to know I'm going through it. And then I will do what I've just taught all of you because I do not like feeling lousy. And then when I come back out, then I, surface again and I'm back on social media and I'm back calling people and I'm back talking, but after.
Man. What a great disclosure. Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
And I was just going to say, I love that I'm better. I love that because so many people ask you how you are. I'm good. I'm good. How many of us just say, I'm good, or I'm busy, whatever it is. I'm better.
Here's another little tip, guys. If somebody asks you, how are you doing? And you go, yeah, that's really not going to help you, right? Test it out. Say it to everybody, all of you out there. Just when somebody asks you, how are you? Just go, fabulous. Can you feel lousy if you say fabulous?
Yeah, it's a great word.
Or phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Be loud.
Yeah.
You go, I'm phenomenal. By the way, with the hand, it has to be.
I wanted to hit
love
on this. You know, the Navy SEALs, there was I don't know who it was that said it, but it's not mine. It
Mhm.
says, never quit in the darkness. He was a Navy SEAL.
Mhm.
And man, it could feel like when you were talking about getting into your space where you do have your downtimes, I have those. And I just go into my tools on those days.
That's it.
Mhm.
I don't show up and I don't create because I don't have the space for creation. I'm in survival mode in a way. And so I just survive the emotions, try and get myself calm and back into my head. And then as soon as I can, I re-engage. That's important right there, is you got to re-engage.
Yeah. And I'll admit, I do the
Yes.
same thing.
And
Absolutely. Sorry, Maureen. I was just going to say,
But
I
that
do the
means
same.
we're acknowledging.
We're on a delay, I think.
Are you? Yeah. Melissa, you go first and then Maureen.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I do the same thing. And it's the most important part is the re-engaging. And I will, okay, I'm going to make this disclosure right now. I stepped back from Mat Chat after my dad passed, and I haven't made it back there yet. And I've been in a space on Thursday nights of just every Thursday comes, and I have my shower like I normally do before Mat Chat, and I think about it, and I think about whether I'm in that space and ready to come back to it. And I haven't been yet. I've been on the radio show, I've been on the TV show, I've been showing up to everything else, but Mat Chat is the one thing I haven't shown up back up to yet. And each week I give myself the space to decide whether I'm ready to be back to it yet. And that's the one thing I haven't re-engaged with yet. And I will, as soon as I'm ready and the space is there for me, I'll re-engage there too. And I do the same thing. I step back and take that space for myself. Go ahead, Maureen. What were you going to say?
That's perfect. It's just that we're acknowledging that it's temporary. As we're going through it, the fact that we're planning when to re-engage means that we are aware that this X factor, this time, is temporary.
Yeah, I like that. Man, so much power in this. So
There is.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Before we say goodbye to all of our social media friends, does anybody have any last comments, anything you want to say before we head off? Silence. I'm going to let everybody know on social media before we head off that I'm so grateful for Nick joining us today and for our special co-host, the Hypno Lady, Maureen Pisani. I'm so grateful to you for being on with us this weekend, the last 2 weeks. You are just, a pleasure to have on the show and such a wealth of knowledge. You've taught us so much over the last 3 weeks. If you would like to get a hold of Maureen, she is at ProThriveSBH, right? .com. ProThrive SBH. It took me 3 weeks, but I finally got it right. ProThriveSBH.com if you'd like to get a hold of Maureen. And we're going to say goodbye. We're going to sign off. Join us again next Sunday for Wake Up with Giants TV and Wake Up with Giants Radio. And don't forget to go to our YouTube channel, like and subscribe. All right. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.